What is going on, gunfighters? Saddle up for Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. Now, if you've listened for any length of time, you'll know that this is not the podcast that's always chasing the next plastic, fantastic, tactical Tupperware. Oh, this new hot thing just came out, and run out and buy it. It's not what we're about here. I'm not the guy to tell you that the 1911 is so old and antiquated that you may as well shoot yourself in the foot while driving to the range. That way you don't get into a real gunfight with such an antiquated platform. Or to tell you that the revolver is so old and outdated that you may as well ride your dinosaur into the gunfight. That's not me, and that's not what we're about here. But I don't want to be a Luddite. I don't want to throw out the new technology that's really good. And you'll know, if you've listened for any length of time, that I have a general rule, because I've learned the hard way, to stay away from guns the first 3 years that they are out. Because oftentimes, no matter how good the manufacturer is, Glock, Smith & Wesson, Colt, the solid name brands, they can have issues. And it's not uncommon for all those manufacturers to have issues on certain models. And I don't recommend you being a beta tester in a gunfight. If that gun has issues, let some YouTube personality or somebody that just collects guns for fun figure that out. You don't need to find that out. This is Gunfighter Life, right? This is not gun hobbyist plinkster life. If you want to buy those guns, that's fine, and go out and collect them and have them as a novelty. But if you're going to carry one to protect your life or other people's lives with it, I recommend the rule of having something for 3 years. 3 years generally will reveal any issues with that gun. Now, any gun can break, and I've certainly broke many a gun. I've even had guns come broken with issues straight from the factory. Even that's not unheard of. But some guns have inherent issues that have to be addressed, especially, new models that come out that are fundamentally different. Now, if it's a new model, like it has a new finish, I'm less concerned about that. But if it's a fundamentally new design, my advice is to stay away from that for 3 years until you're sure and it's been a proven platform, right? Much better to have a proven platform that's a few years old than the latest and greatest thing that may or may not work. And that's sound advice, I think. And I'm going to continue to give that. With that being said, a very long-winded way of saying what guns are coming up on that list. I was thinking about this. And this would be right around the 2020, 2021 time frame at the time of this recording in the year of our Lord, 2023. What guns are starting to be there? They're either there or they're about to be there that you might consider if you're looking at one of these guns that have proven themselves. They either had no issues or they had an issue early on and it's been addressed and they haven't had any since. Proven platforms that came out, around the time of this whole COVID thing. I'll be polite about it. The COVID thing, the pandemic of fear. What guns are coming up on that time frame to be considered? That's what we're going to talk about today on Gunfighter Life. Now don't worry, we're about to get into it, but to give credit where credit is due, I looked on some lists to see the guns that came out in 2020, 2021 that I thought would be worth discussing because I don't remember every year that every model comes out. And I got an article from guns.com and shootingtimes.com, so I wanted to give credit where credit is due. Now, if I'm talking about a gun on here, I'm familiar with it. I just needed them for the list of what guns came out when. But I like to give credit where credit is due. That is biblical. Now, I didn't plan this out, but the first one pretty clearly demonstrates this concept. The Colt Python The Colt Python. I'm so happy they came back out with this gun. It's an American icon. It's a Hollywood icon. It's one of the most beautiful revolvers, in my opinion, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. One of the most beautiful, elegant, and very useful revolvers ever, period. And it went away for a while, and it came back. And the reason it demonstrates the rule we talked about thus far is that it had issues early on. They were addressed, and it seems to be doing fine. The last several years, it seems to be going fine. So the new Colt Python is just an awesome chance. Now, if you're really a collector and into the historical aspect of it, you may want an original Python. They're certainly fantastic guns, especially the old blued ones. I'm not much of a collector. I'm much more of a gun fighter. This is not gun collector life. So if I get one, I'm probably going to shoot it and beat it up and carry it. And I probably don't want to do that to a pristine old Colt Python. For me, the new Colt Python is pretty appealing for a medium-sized, mid-frame 357-38 Special, which I think is one of the most utilitarian and useful revolvers you can have. Like, it would be a great choice if you could only own one firearm, period. Whether World War III happens tomorrow and zombie Russian paratroopers fall out of the sky and you have to start peeing in your radiator, or things continue pretty much as they are with, pretty what for today is standard inflation or whatnot, but things tend to stay in the law and order realm. A really good, useful gun to have is a medium frame 38 Special 357. If you are good with a handgun, and I mean really good, not just like your average person that goes out and shoots once a year, but somebody that really puts the time and dedication into being a connoisseur of the handgun, of being a really good gunfighter with a handgun, you can do a lot with a medium frame 357. And there are other good ones, but the fact that you have the option for a good, usable, workable stainless steel Colt Python is fantastic. It's fantastic. And I like stainless steel. I actually like it better than bluing. And I think it's just as attractive looking. So for me, that stainless steel Colt Python, medium frame, I'd say 4-inch-ish barrel, even a 3-inch barrel, is a great all-around handgun. Now, it's not my EDC. I EDC a full-size fighting handgun, modern, normal capacity for today, 15 to 20 rounds with a Trijicon RMR on it. But I wouldn't feel bad about carrying a Colt Python. It's a good gun, and I am so glad that it's back. And again, early on, if you'd have rushed out and got one as soon as it came out, I don't think it was trustworthy of a carry gun you're going to defend your life against people or bears or whatever the case is. But I think today it is. And that's a fantastic thing. That Colt Python, I'm so happy that it's back being made. The next one, and I didn't plan this out either, but really goes a lot of continuity here. A classic design that I'm glad that we can get as civilians. It never really went away because you couldn't really get it. Now, I have some experience in my professional career with the MP5s. But for a long time as a civilian, unless you wanted to pay the ridiculous absorbent amount of money for a legal machine gun, you couldn't have an MP5. But they came out with the SP5, which made by H&K, so I assume very good quality, same quality, just in a semi-automatic form. And it doesn't seem to have any issues. So if you've always wanted that MP5 type design, and there's more to it than just the HK and the reputation. That operating system, I think, is better than a lot of cheaper PCCs that are just straight blowback. I think the recoil impulse and shootability and everything is better on the MP5 and therefore SP5 type gun. So if you want a really good, rock solid, and now at this point pretty proven, good PCC, or just straight up pistol, depending on how you're going to configure it and the whole brace thing that's going on right now whatever. But if you want a gun like that, the H&K SP5 has been out for a few years now and just really a good gun. It's the reason it stood the test of time and it's been around in the military and law enforcement role and it doesn't seem to be going away is because it's really good. They really are. I'm not saying that you have to spend that much money to get a good PCC, but I'm saying if you do spend that much money on an H&K SP5, it's not wasted money. Not like you're just paying for a name. It's a good design. It's a good operating system. It's good quality. The SP5, it's a fantastic gun. Moving on, Mossberg is kind of known for their awesome shotguns, but they're not really known as much for their defensive handguns. Well, the MC2 came out around this time. So if you're looking for a good compact carry gun, don't forget about the Mossbergs. I think they're kind of forgotten about. And if you care about buying American and you're looking for a not crazy expensive option, you could go with other options. You could go with like a Taurus, but again, if you want American made, the Mossbergs, I've been really impressed with these guns. They don't seem to have any issues. At least no more so than many other defensive compact handguns. They're American made, American company. They're a really good size. I think they straddle that line really well between being big enough to shoot effectively and small enough that most people are going to carry them. Now, I carry a full-size fighting handgun. I would encourage you to carry a full-size fighting handgun. However, I know a lot of people will want to carry that smaller version. And if you're looking for that size handgun, the Mossberg MC2, I think the 2 is different in that it's a double stack, but a really, really good option. I don't know why they're not more popular, except that maybe just people don't consider them with all the other options, but they're a good option. And again, at this point, a pretty proven platform. And again, I carry a full-size handgun most of the time, but I would not feel bad about recommending the Mossberg handguns for carry. I certainly think they are good enough for that. Now, congruently on the American-made defensive handgun, Smith & Wesson, kind of iconic in this, they really were a game changer when this whole concealed carry thing became common, or a lot more common. When I first started teaching, being an instructor, it wasn't very common. Look at the amount of states that allow some version of concealed carry today, and it's way more than it was even 20 years ago. But Smith & Wesson was kind of a game changer when it came out with the Shield, and the Shield is still a good gun. And then they came out with the EZ, and the EZ was a good gun, especially for new shooters. The version I'm going to talk about today that's came out and it's been long enough for it to be a proven platform. Again, don't just run out and buy the next hot thing and start carrying it. Make sure it's proven. This one is proven now. I would feel comfortable recommending it. And it's the M&P Shield EZ 9mm. They beefed it up to 9mm. And you may say, why wouldn't I just get the Shield? There's nothing wrong with that. The Shield is a good gun. But actually, in my handling, the Shield EZs have, even if you don't care about the rack and slide and you're a grown man and you can rack the slide just fine, there's more to it than that. They have a really good trigger. Also, unlike the Shield, they're not striker fired, they're actually internal hammer fired, which is probably one of the reasons it has a better trigger in my opinion. I think they have a superior trigger. And you don't have to deal with that kind of segmented trigger. And I'm a big fan of the Smith & Wesson M&P. I've won more competitions with that platform than any other, more than I can remember, but I still don't like a segmented trigger if I don't have to have it. The Shield EZ does not have it because it has that, I assume part of the reason is because it has that grip safety. And the grip safety bothers me a lot less because when I'm grabbing the gun, I don't really care. Once I grab the gun, the grip safety is defeated. So I have no complaints on a grip safety like that. So you get that, and you get the better trigger, and it's just a really good gun, especially the Performance Center model, but even just the 9mm Shield EZ. A good carry gun. And again, I wouldn't fault you for just getting the regular Shield. It's certainly proven at this point. But that Shield EZ 9mm, it's a good gun too. Don't think it's just for, little old ladies or whatever. It's a good gun. If you are considering a Shield or something like it, there is nothing wrong with that. But don't discount the Shield EZ. Compare them. You may decide you like it better than the regular Shield. You may decide you want a regular Shield. That either one is fine, but don't discount it because it says EZ on it. They're a good gun. Here is a big one, and it's hard for me to get excited about another polymer striker-fired handgun, but really, I think it's one of the best ones on the market, and it's not one of the most popular ones on the market, but it's been around long enough now that I would actually carry one, use one, and that is the Walther PDP. Walther makes good handguns. They have for a long time. This one is really good. In fact, I think it made it on the top 5 polymer striker fired handguns, and I think it deserves that spot. Now, like I said with the Python, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I honestly think this is a pretty ugly handgun, but it's a good handgun. It looks kind of big and blocky and clunky, at least to me. But when I actually picked one up, it was really well done. It had really good ergonomics. It handled really well. The manipulations and everything were quite good. And if we're talking about a gunfighting handgun, that's a lot more important to me than whether I find it aesthetically pleasing. The Walther PDP, it's like, in my opinion, one step up above a Glock as far as aesthetics go. It's maybe a little bit more attractive than a Glock. That's not hard to do, but it's got way better ergonomics, and here's the kicker. It has a really good trigger. Now, it's not a 1911 trigger, but we're talking in the realm of polymer striker-fired handguns. It has a really, really good trigger. It's a fairly lightweight, especially for its size, handy, good ergonomics platform. So if you are looking for a good duty gun or carry gun, they make these in different sizes, different barrel lengths. And what I like is they make the full length or long slide with the shorter grip. For concealed carry, the way that I carry, that appeals to me. And I have been really impressed with these. I was handling them quite a bit, and they haven't popped up with really any big issues. All the ones that I've seen, I think, come ready for an optic, which is a big deal, and it has a fairly decent optics mounting system. I still think we're in kind of the beta testing phase as far as mounting optics on handguns, and some systems are really good and some systems are really not. And this one is on the better end of that. So it comes ready for an optic. I think all the ones that I'm aware of come ready for an optic, and it's a good optics mounting system. It's a good handgun, the Walther PDP. The next one you may not think needs to meet this criteria, and maybe for you it doesn't, if you hunt for sport and the enjoyment of it, and I do that too, but I primarily hunt for meat and putting meat on the table. Also, if you're in an area, as I am on the Montana-Idaho north border here, where there's lions and wolves and bears, and you may have to use it for defense against that. Perhaps a hunting rifle, you also want to meet these criteria. One that came out that is fairly unique. It's not just a different, Tikka with a new finish and a new camo pattern on the stock, or a new Ruger American with pretty much exactly the same thing, except maybe it has a muzzle brake on it. Right, a fundamentally different design, different model. That's the case with the Savage Impulse. The Savage Impulse is kind of unique in the world of hunting bolt-action rifles in that it's a straight pull. Straight pulls are not unique to Savage. There are military versions, but as far as a common, American, affordable bolt-action hunting rifle, it's the only straight pull that comes to mind. There are like the Blaser R8s and things, but those are pretty spendy for the average hunter. The Savage Impulse is not cheap, but it's not the cost of a decent vehicle either. So that Savage Impulse, if you want a straight pull bolt action rifle, it's pretty cool, and it's been out for a while. It looks a little unorthodox with the ball bearings on the bolt and the way the bolt works, but hey, it seems to work pretty well. Nobody has, really, I don't think any big issues with them. They don't seem to blow up or have reliability issues or anything like that. And Savage, in my experience, makes some of the most accurate rifles, not even for the money, just period. They make really, really accurate rifles. And the Savage Impulse, again, I think is getting on the cusp of proven. So if you want a good, proven bolt-action hunting rifle, or whatever your bolt-action need is, and you want something different than the regular bolt-action, you may look at the Savage Impulse. It's pretty cool. And the last one I'm going to talk about today on this list is going to be, yes, a Taurus. The Taurus TX22. This one came out, and it seems to have very little to no issues, especially the competition model. And why I'm recommending this on Gunfighter Life, I encourage you to train. And training can be a lot less painful as far as cost goes with a 22. If you are a serious gunfighter, a serious concealed carrier, handgun shooter, I really encourage you to have a 22 in your battery for training. Also for other things too, but especially for training. Now, I was against red dots for a long time. What does this have to do with this handgun? We'll get back to it. Stick with me on this roller coaster and we'll come back to the starting point. I was against red dots for a long time, longer than I probably should have been. I was kind of a Luddite on that. I even told my tactical team I let them run them if they could pass the quals and stuff with them, but I was kind of against them. I'm distrusting of things with batteries when it comes to tactical applications, things like that. But they got to the point where they were plenty robust enough. At least a good quality optic was robust enough to handle the abuse of being on a fighting handgun. And I actually did some trials testing out an optic for myself. Even though for years I was against them, I was like, you know what, instead of just saying that I'm against them on a fighting handgun, let me actually devote myself for a while to actually trying to get good with them. And I have a couple of core drills that I do. My standard, I think, at the time was 50-yard headshots, 21 in a row. I've since shortened that to 10 in a row because that can take a while if I don't have a lot of time to practice. And I have one for up-close CQB type distances, and I have one that's intermediate. And the intermediate one is often the most challenging one. And that is draw and 3 shots on the head plate. It's a steel plate about the size of a head. I call it the head plate. I use it for a lot of training. Draw 3 hits on that head plate at 25 yards. So it's kind of a mix for me between speed and accuracy. And after I had trained for just a short time, not anywhere near the years that I had been training with iron sights, I did that drill much, much faster than I was ever able to do it with iron sights. And I thought, hey, it's better. I'm going to start switching to it. And I did. But I did the bulk of that practice and all that training and the repetition with the 22. And if you're looking to get into the world of red dots, I would recommend doing it with the 22, getting the reps and sets in and all the ammo and training in with the 22. Because you're not focusing so much on the recoil or any of that stuff. You're focusing on getting familiar with shooting with a red dot optic on a handgun. And a 22 is a good way to go. And this one in particular, now I don't have this one. I have a Ruger Mark IV. I think it's a better handgun, but also it's going to cost you more. This Taurus, I think, is a good option. And unlike a lot of the other options, the red dot mount is solid and it mounts to the barrel, meaning it doesn't reciprocate. Why is that important? Well, because red dot optics get beat up quite a bit slamming back and forth on that. If you're talking about a training 22, I think you can get away with a less expensive option with this kind of mounting system where it doesn't reciprocate, it doesn't get slammed back and forth. So I think it's a good option. This handgun came out a few years ago, and I think it's proven itself. So if you're looking for a good platform in which to start transitioning to a red dot on a handgun, or you already are shooting a red dot on a handgun, and you want a good 22 that has a similar manual of arms to your handgun, you may consider this one. And I just did an episode on new shooters. This would be a good handgun, 22 handgun, pretty much most modern 22 handguns for getting somebody new into shooting as well. But a good handgun and a good trainer, and I don't often recommend Taurus, but I thought this would be a good chance to do that. Now, transitioning to the tactical tip of the day. This just came up today in the Patreon chat. If you're not a patron, or you are a patron and you're not part of the chat, that's a thing I do for the patrons that want to be a part of it. It's an insider group chat where we talk about all kinds of stuff. Deep theology, sharing Bible verses. And we also talk a lot about guns, 9mm defensive ammo and things like that. And this came up in the chat. What do I think about the strobe lights? Are they useful for a deterrent, a maybe low-level use of force? And I think they are, with many caveats. And this may ruffle some feathers in the tactical sphere, because it's maybe not the consensus view. But I'm going to try and give you my opinion from my real-world first-hand experience. For these strobe lights to be effective, they need to be very bright. Very bright. I would say well above the 1,000 lumens. Now, I don't like a light that bright for my go-to searching and EDC light. And this is what I think will ruffle some feathers. Again, I didn't put the bio into this one, but you've probably heard it before. I've searched enough buildings, done enough urban warfare, things like that, that you can have a light, in my opinion, far too bright. You go to search something, you go enter a room and turn on your light, and it's a bathroom, and there's mirrors everywhere, and now you're blind because you shined a 1200 lumen light and it shined right back into your face. I like several hundred lumens as a go-to searching light. Unless we're talking about searching outside in a really, really large area, which you may want night vision at that point. But for the kind of stuff we're talking about here, I don't like that many lumens. And a couple hundred lumen strobe light is probably going to be not very effective, not a low-level use of force. It's just going to be mildly annoying, which is not what you're going for. So you're going to have a whole separate light. And this is the practice when I was the commander of the tactical team to stop active shooters. We had these on the team. We had people that used them on the team, but they used them as a separate light. It wasn't their weapon-mounted light. It wasn't their handheld searchlight. Because even if you have a weapon-mounted light, you still need a good handheld searching light. Because you don't want to be searching and pointing your weapon at stuff you shouldn't be. So this would be a second or third light that you had on your kit, on your body armor, on your war belt. That was just for this purpose. And I would use it in a team tactic where somebody had their gun out because this is a threat, right? Or maybe was at the ready or some kind of position of advantage, and then the other person would use this flashlight to maybe deter them. And I would have it as a separate light. Also, I like simplicity. I don't want some kind of crazy space light with 12 different modes and different modalities, amounts of light, strobes, SOS signals. I want a simple flashlight with an on-off button. Because when all this is going on, you have enough to think about. Not what cycle your flashlight's going to come on at. I like a simple on-off button. I like a simple handheld light with a couple of hundred lumens. I think that's a sweet spot. So again, if I had this, I would have it as a strobe only, and I would have it very bright, and I would have it as a completely separate tool in my kit. Those are my thoughts on a strobing light and its useful and effectiveness. That's your tactical tip of the day, and you can thank the patrons not only for that, but much of this content because they support the show. If you'd like to become a patron and get some cool insider content, whether it's the chat or just the episodes you get that are just for patrons or things like that, consider becoming a patron. There'll be a Patreon link in the show notes. Now, for the tactical verse of the day. These kind of situations, use of force situations, deadly force situations, gunfights, I don't think I have to tell you, they're dangerous situations. Your life or somebody else's life may be literally on the line. Remember what's really important in life. Your tactical verse of the day. For if we live to the Lord. And if we die to the Lord. Therefore, whether we live or die, we are the Lord's. For to this end Christ died and rose and lived again, that he might be Lord of both the dead and the living. But why do you judge your brother, or why do you show contempt for your brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. For it is written, As I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess. So then each of us shall give an account of himself to God. Commentary. One day you're going to give an account of yourself to God, and he's not going to be impressed with what gun is on your hip, or what gun was on your hip. There's probably a better way to put that. Did you follow him? Did you listen to him? Did you live your life for him? Did you trust in the saving blood of his son Jesus Christ? These are important questions. These are important things to focus on, more than the next cool polymer striker fired handgun. These should be the core of your life, the foundation of your life. With that, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.